want, you could tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do creatively.
So I am originally from a small town in Pennsylvania. That's where I was born and raised. And so I moved to Florida about 4 years ago.
Wow.
To go to Full Sail University for music production. And so I graduated, and that's when COVID happened. So I was recently engaged, and we're figuring out, our plan was to go to LA and kind of do that whole journey of that artist lifestyle,
I love it.
That's pretty much what everybody does, right? They either go to like New York, Nashville, LA. And so with COVID, we were like, okay, well, that's not, going to happen. And then we were able to get an internship, both of us, at a studio and work there for a little bit. But it's, the artist lifestyle, it's not easy. And it's definitely something that you have to be all in. And to be honest, my heart is definitely still in music. I'm still doing that on the side. And, I work with my church and with their music ministry, and I'm still doing photography on the side. Like I just had a shoot, a week ago. But my heart is kind of going elsewhere, and, we want to start a family soon. So there's a lot going on, and it's okay for your dreams and things to change. But I know music and photography, they're always going to be passions of mine that, I'm always gonna have, and I'm always gonna, dabble in. But so, and we're here now in Florida, and just till the next thing kind of happens or whatever, and then we'll decide what the future holds from there. So
yeah, I love it. I mean, you're such a creative person and like bubbly, and I love your energy, and I've always loved hanging out and creating with you. So it's really awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that you're still doing photography too, because you take really good photos.
Oh, thank you.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about social anxiety, because I know this is something that you struggle with personally. And I wanted to know, actually, how do you cope with social anxiety on a day-to-day basis?
So social anxiety and, depression, for me, I talk about them both because they go hand in hand. I've dealt with it since I can remember. As a kid, you can't really pinpoint those emotions. You don't know why you're feeling that way. And I think you go about your day. You're a kid. Like, what do you don't really know much. And so I think, a lot of those emotions, they get bottled up. You're not talking about it. And I think with our parents, their generation, they, and even, before their generation, mental health was never a priority. It was, if you had some sort of mental health issue, you'd get sent off to, a facility or whatever. And so, or you just didn't talk about it. Now for social anxiety, I have, I've been listening to, whether it's podcasts or reading books. Like I have this book right here, if I can get it. It's one of my favorite books. I just read a couple months ago. It's called The Slight Edge. And it just kind of talks about habits, because the biggest thing with mental health is there are a lot of bad habits that you develop through it. Whether it's, you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to take a shower, you don't want to go out to go get groceries, you don't want to do nothing, and you just want to stay in your bed all day. And so you got to break habits and create new ones that are going to help, whether it's your social interaction or help the little, wins that you have during the day, like getting out of bed and going to the gym, exercising, what you eat. So when I stopped drinking, that was one of my biggest moments for my mental health to start to heal, because alcohol is a depressant. And so if you're already depressed in the moment, you might think that like you feel better, but then we all know the next day happens and you don't. You still feel bad. And usually you feel shame and guilt wrapped around it too. So it's even more, it's even harder than to get through whatever emotion it is that you have to get through. But yeah, reading, listening to audios. I do little things where so my social anxiety when I first moved to Florida, especially, it was so bad that I never left. I never left my house. Like I would do it if I absolutely had to. And I was scared of, like, I just thought that everybody was like judging me and watching me. And like when I would drive, I hated driving because I thought that everybody was like from their cars, they were all staring at me. Like it was really severe.
Wow.
And I remember I was going to therapy at the time, and I remember talking to my therapist, and she'd be like, okay, do this one thing, go to this store this week, and go, because my thing is, it was, number one, it was hard for me to get there, but a lot of the times if I mustered up the strength to get there, I'd get there and I'd sit in the parking lot, and I would contemplate there for like 30 minutes if I wanted to go into the store or not. And so with all of this, like, anxiety wastes so much time because you're in this state of like, should I do it? Should I not? Like, and you're just, there's all this fear that's stopping you. And so, yeah, just little things like, now that I can get to the store now and I can drive my car and all of those things are normal now to me. There are moments though where sometimes I'll still have, where I'm about to go out to run an errand and I get a little bit of anxiety. I'll have those moments, and you get through them. But now when I'm out, things that I'll do as small as like smiling at somebody and just making eye contact. You don't necessarily have to have a conversation, because that's the thing is because of how afraid I was, like, just of people and talking to them, like to people I don't know. I'm not saying like family members, I was able to hold conversations with family members and have relationships, but cortisol is, that's what gets spiked when you have anxiety attacks, or it's what happens when your body goes into fight or flight mode. Your cortisol levels spike. And so if those cortisol levels aren't actually, it's almost like adrenaline, right? If those cortisol levels aren't being used, whether it's through exercise or just through an action, that you're doing something to release those, they get pent up and they end up eating away at your body, at your immune system, at your organs. And it is a very, it causes disease. It can cause cancer. My therapist totally thinks that her cancer was caused by how much anxiety she had. For years and years and years, she just had such high cortisol because it's a toxin, So, well, I mean, actually it might not be a toxin, but it acts like a toxin to your body if it's not released.
Okay.
And so, yeah, exercise is so important. And when you start to get on a routine, you'll know when you're off that routine, whether it's you get angrier easier, or you just start to have that anxiety, that depression, that lull.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely reading, listening to, podcasts that talk about how you can heal your brain. And we are creatures that are meant to learn and to read and to grow. And with social media, and like it is great because we're able to have outlets to do things like this and to spread awareness. But it also can just be detrimental if all you're doing is scrolling on your phone. You're not actually, your brain is turning into mush. So you got to do other things to get your brain working. And last thing I'll say on this, when it comes to changing, or not change, I guess changing, because again, I said, I don't know for me if I'll ever know life without the depression and anxiety, but you can, like, change the grooves in your brain, the literal grooves, because that's what happens when you have a habit. It's a groove in your brain. So you have to do something, whether it's create a hole, because a lot of those grooves are so deep that you might not necessarily change that groove. You have to create a new groove. And that's it's almost like, you know, the game like Two Truths and a Lie. For every lie that you tell yourself, whether it's like people don't like me or what, because, you know, social anxiety can kind of be selfish sometimes. And I know that can be kind of controversial, but if you're thinking that everyone is so focused on you all the time, you know, so that's, I don't know if I completed that thought or not, but
that was like such an, wow, like a very full answer. Like, that's amazing. I'm just gonna try and just recap everything you said for our listeners so that they can, like, you know, recall everything you said. So let me, like, correct me if I'm wrong and let me know if I got everything. You said exercise, eating healthy, podcasts that help you, like, thinking patterns and, like, with your mind and your brain, and also reading books.
And the two truths and a lie. For every lie that you tell yourself two truths that go against that lie. And that's what's going to start to create that new rut in your brain. And instead of looking for evidence for the bad rut, your brain will start to look evidence for the good rut. And that's what's going to change your thinking patterns. Your thinking patterns change your habits change your life. So, yeah.
And even just a casual smile at the grocery store, making eye contact with somebody.
Contact is so important. You can know a person within 7 seconds just by their eye contact, like how that person, you know, like their personality type, essentially.
I want to back up a little bit because I actually meant to ask this question first, but since I didn't, I'll just back up. I wanted to actually ask if you could explain to our listeners what exactly is social anxiety, because some may not fully know what that even is, because if they haven't ever experienced it before. So if you could just briefly say what it is.
So, you know, if you look up the definition, which I could right now, because we got Google and all that. I would say, because I think there's like, there are different forms of social anxiety. I know that, like, agoraphobia, I believe, is the fear of leaving your house. And so that, I mean, you know, I don't know, like, I knew that a little bit. There are some people, there's this one movie called, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called The Bleach Warmers. And
no,
it's a baseball movie. It's hilarious. It's comedy. But there's this one guy in the movie, and he lives in his closet, and he's like afraid of the sunlight. And so,
oh wow,
and this is like an extreme version, because he drinks like tubes of what's it called, sunscreen, because he thinks it's gonna like save him from the sun or whatever. But he lives in a dark closet, and he's so afraid to leave, and he's like 40 years old, and he's never left his house. And that's like there are really extreme cases, and it's so sad. And then, you know, there's social anxiety where it's, again, it's being in social situations. It's just that fear of being around people, talking to people. So yeah, I think it's there's a range to it. So.
Well, how does social anxiety affect your personal relationships, you'd say, like with people?
So I would say the biggest, so I'm married. I would say the biggest effect that it's had, at least, you know, with my significant other, is getting them to, like, Michael's, you know, he's dealt with like depression and things like that. Or like situational depression, and so it's like he understands, but there are moments where, you know, it feels like it's like people just, they don't understand, and so I think it's just, the biggest part is when I tell him, you know, I'm too afraid to go to the store today, so I'm gonna wait till you get off work. And that might mess up his schedule for that night, you know, a little bit, but I don't feel comfortable going alone. So like that happens when I go to the doctors, like for the longest time, I he would have to come to my doctor's, appointments with me because, or my chiropractor appointments, because the fear of just being around people I don't know. And it's those, I guess, scenarios that I would say affected the most. I think too, like, I am a homebody. Like, I love to stay in. So I would just say, like, sometimes, like, it affected personal relationships back, I guess, when I had friends. I might say when I had friends, like I have friends now, but as you get older, your group, as we all know, it gets smaller, which is okay.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. Yeah. Because we're all busy anyways. So but I would cancel plans all the time. I'd cancel plans, I'd cancel phone calls, because as soon as that social anxiety hit, it's a no-brainer. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to do that. Like, I was too scared. And then there's the whole, like, man, the guilt tripping that you do, like, to yourself when, you're not following through on things that you said you were going to do. And it's like, there's the part of you that's just like, well, it's not my fault. Like, I didn't ask for my brain to be like this, like, I would love, I don't envy, because I tell myself, like, I'm going to be this person one day. But the people who are so confident and who just, they walk in a room and they can just convey conversation, and, like, that's how I want to be all the time. And so, with relationships, I think they're definitely, now my relationships have gotten better because I really focus on the other person, and just like thinking more about them and caring about them rather than, like, what can I get out of the relationship. And so, my relationships, because I'm getting healthier, relationships are becoming healthier as well. So
I know we talked a little bit about how social anxiety affects your relationships and, like, your life on a daily basis and a personal level. Does social anxiety have any effects on your creative pursuits, such as making music or photography? Like, how is it in that arena for you?
So I went into psychology before I ever went into, I was doing music and psychology. I was a double major. And I realized, I'm like, I wanted to do psychology because I was like, why do I feel, because I didn't start, going on medication or, going to seek therapy or really understanding myself until my freshman year of college. Like, wow. That's when I told my parents, I'm like, look, something is wrong. Something's been wrong for a while. And I need to figure this out. And, that was a whole, conversation in itself. But I thought that because not just thought, but knew there are a lot of, because of learning this through my psych major, there was, obviously highlighted mental illness in the creative community. And that's why I believe that, because that, like, you think about it, they need an outlet, right? So, but here I'm thinking, I'm like, well, so I was 5 years old when I started playing the piano. So music has always been in my life. I started the violin when I was, in 3rd grade, and then started the saxophone when I was in 8th grade, and then started the guitar when I was in, 9th grade. And then I sing. And so I have always loved music, and it was something that always came, it's definitely a gift from God. Like, it's something that I picked it up very easily, but we all know that hard work beats talent every time. You can be the most talented person, but if somebody's outworking you, even if they don't have the talent, they will always become better than you. Yeah. And for me, I thought that, like, like, want to be an artist, like, this is going to be really good. Well, with depression and anxiety comes a thing we like to call procrastination, because we're so in these funks where we don't want to do anything at all. And so honestly, it can really affect your creativity because you have these roadblocks, and they happen all the time. And I remember I would start writing a song, and it was so good, and I'm really liking it. And then I never finish it. Like, and then I start another song, and I really, really like this, and then I never finish it. And when you do finish the songs, and I have one that I have finished that I do absolutely, I want to release it at some point, but because like I've kind of taken my eyes off of being an artist for right now, that might happen, down the line, but it's something I'm very proud of because I finished it. And it, there are songs that I have created like towards mental health that have been therapeutic for me to get those, those words out on paper, and it being a journaling experience. But yeah, I would say it just depends. But for me, I would say it definitely hindered me more than it helped me.
What advice do you have for creatives or even just people in general with how to cope with social anxiety?
I would say that you don't have to be the victim. Like, you choose whether you're the victim or the victor, because there's so many people who have to deal with this. It's, like, and there are people who have, like, for me, I'm like, I got a good son. Like, that's how I feel. I'm like, there are people who really, can't do life.
Yeah.
And again, there's a whole range, but I'd say for the people who are trying to get up on their feet and kind of get out of their ruts, I would just say you can choose to change how you think. You can rewire your brain, because it was wired one way. So now but you can rewire it. You can create a new reality for yourself. It takes a lot of hard work. It's very uncomfortable, but as we know, like, you can't grow if you're comfortable. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And that sometimes leaving your house, having a conversation with somebody in the grocery store, getting out of bed, telling yourself positive affirmations. It's just, you got to create a positive reality for yourself, so that your mind can look for that and look for the evidence of that in the life that you want to live. And it's like, no matter what, you can do it. It takes time, it takes work, and it takes strength, which you can gain. Even with mental health issues, you can gain mental strength, and you do going through. You definitely getting through what you already are going through. But you can get up, and I believe in you. I believe in anybody who might not even be in that conversation yet, and they're in the thick of it right now, and they're really battling. They don't want to get up and do life. I believe in that person too, because I think if I can change, and I literally thought this was like that my life was just going to be just miserable forever because of this. I'm like, I think a lot of people can do it. I think anybody can do it. So.